Hello everyone, my name is Hanhua. First, I will introduce the timeline of COVID-19 in Italy. January 31, 2020, Italy confirmed its first case of COVID-19 with 2 Chinese tourists diagnosed in Rome. February 21, 2020, the first location transmitted case was confirmed in the northern province of Lodi, and the epidemic spread rapidly afterward. March 9, 2020, the Italian government announced a nationwide lockdown, become the first European country to take nationwide lockdown measure. Then I will introduce the WSPS model. The WS describes the relationship between the wage level and the employment rate. W equal P point F, where W is the normal wage, P is the price level, U is the employment rate, and Z is other factors that affect wage setting, such as a union stress on employment benefit. The PS curve describes the relationship between the price level and the wage level. Normally, the price curve is horizontal, indicating that the company sets the product price based on the production cost. P equal 1 and mu point W, where P is the price level, W is the normal wage, and mu is the company markup rate, which reflects the extent of the company price increase on the basis of cost. The price level is mainly determined by the company production costs, among which are the main cost factor. When setting price, company will earn a certain profit on the basis of cost. The unemployment rate corresponding to the equilibrium point is called the national unemployment rate. It represents the long-term equilibrium state of the labor market. At this point, wage setting and price setting are balanced. The unemployment rate reach the national unemployment rate level, and the economy is a stable state. Increased unemployment benefit may reduce the workers' concerned about unemployment, enhance their bargaining power, and increase wage, which will cause the WS curve to move up and increase the national unemployment rate. Labor market reforms, such as reduced bargaining power of unions, may reduce the workers' bargaining power and reduce wage, which will cause the WS curve to move down and reduce the national unemployment rate.
My name is Chen Zhuang, and I will introduce how the model has changed during the COVID-19 pandemic. We all know the IS curve implies the relationship between output and interest rates. The PC curve implies the relationship between inflation and unemployment. And the PR curve represents the changing process of price levels, especially inflation expectation and their impact on actual inflation. Through this model, we can analyze the relationship between inflation dynamic, inflation expectation, and actual economic activities. From the figure below, we can see that between 2019 and 2020, the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic caused a sharp drop in GDP, which is a manifestation of a decline in aggregate demand. Back to the ISPC PR model. Point A is at the equilibrium point. After being hit by a negative demand shock, the IS curve shifts to the left. At the same time, the interest rate has not changed, resulting in a decline in output. In order to return output to the equilibrium level, the government will implement an expansionary fiscal policy and increase government spending. Expansionary fiscal policies can boost economic growth by increasing aggregate demand. After that, the S curve shifts right from point B to point A. The government needs to get point B back to the PR curve, although output has increased. It has not yet reached the equilibrium point A that the government hopes to return to. The government will implement a contractionary fiscal policy which will cause the IS curve to slowly shift to left and eventually return to point A.
I am 郭策.
Let me introduce the AD-ERU-BT model. The AD curve represents the relationship between total demand and output at different price levels. The ERU curve represents the unemployment rate in the long-term equilibrium, which is not affected by change in total demand. The BT curve represents the relationship between imports and exports and the equilibrium of the balance of payments. Through this model, we can analyze the relationship between total demand, employment, and international trade, especially the interaction in an open economy, and what change will occur in wage and exchange rates. We can see from Figure 1 that GDP has been on a downward trend since 2019, which shows that the economy has been hit by a negative demand shock. Under this negative demand shock in Figure 2, AD moved to the left to 80 point. Due to the reduction in demand, the company's sales decrease and the profits decrease. The company will reduce workers' wage, so the PS curve will move downward to PS point. Workers' wage will decrease, so the point A move to point B, and the employment rate corresponding to point A is NE, move to NE point, from which we can know that the employment rate decreases and unemployment rate increases. At the time, the equilibrium point also moved from point C to the new equilibrium point D, from which we can see that the total output on the y-axis decreases from YE to YE point. The exchange rate Q rises from Q0 to Q1, and the exchange rate depreciates when Q rises. The depreciation of the exchange rate is beneficial to exports and unfavorable to imports. So we can note that the trade surplus BT improves this. Through this model, we can see that negative total demand will lead to a decrease in wages, an increase in employment, a depreciation of the exchange rate, and a decrease in output, BT in process. According to the Figure 3, we can see that the exchange rate in Italy has been rising in the past decade, so which verifies our previous analysis.
Thanks for listening.
My name is Zhang Yisong. Next part, let me introduce your ISPC and MR curve model. Earlier, our group member mentioned negative shock to demand. The next, I will describe what kind of fiscal policy is used when the country experiences a negative demand shock, and this process will be shown in this model. You can look at the picture 1. At the very beginning, the economy is at point A. A negative demand shock at this point causes the IS curve shift left to the IS curve 1, at which point we can see that output decrease from YE to Y0, and inflation decrease from pi 0 to pi 1. Next, the central bank decides to use expansionary monetary policy. The central bank will reduce the interest rate from R0 to R1. PC curve will move right to PC1. By this time, the economy has moved from point B to point C. However, inflation is still not as expected, but instead output has exceeded expectation. So the central bank has to be cautious in using expansionary monetary policy. Now the central bank needs to adopt a a tight monetary policy to meet the excited inflation. The central bank will increase the interest rate by a small amount to reduce the output, thus meet the inflation gap. As can be seen on the graph, the PC curve will slowly shift upward until it returns to the original PC. You can see the PC2 is a process between PC1 to PC. It's also clearly from the data. You can see the picture too. This inflation decreased over the period, and then slowly pick up in line with this model of ours. Then, at the end of my part and the presentation of our group research on Italy, thank you very much for the all guideline you have given us a semester. Thank you for your dedication to teaching and for inspiring us to strive for excellence.